Oh. Well, it's interesting. There were 6 people here when I sat down at 9 o'clock, at 10 o'clock. Lovely. Glad to have you here, all of you. Thank you for being here. So we're talking about love in this month of February. Last week, Debbie talked about, it's L-O-V-E, L-O-V-E. And last week, Debbie talked about living in light and laughter and how important that is. And for years, we do these white stones at the beginning of the year. You write on there what your motto is or what your intention is for the year. And for years, what I would write on there was lightness of heart. I wanted to claim lightness of heart because I think a lot of us take life too seriously. And that is not, I think, what our Creator had in mind. I think we're here to give spirit an opportunity to experience life on this earth plane and experience it in a wonderful way. So that's what I like to remind myself of. Today, we get the L-O. We're talking about the O's of God, the omniscience, the omnipresence, the what did I miss? Presence, omnipotence. And I'm also going to throw in some stuff about Valentine's Day because that's Wednesday, I believe, the 14th. And then next week it's V for vision and vitality, and then the last week it's for E is for enlightened enthusiasm. So that's kind of what we've got going. So just a little bit about Valentine's Day and where that came from. I'm working on seeing my notes. I don't know how good I am at this yet. I think I got to get a little closer to the paper. The history behind it is there was a priest or a bishop, and this would have been in the 3rd century after Christ, and his name was Saint Valentine. And he was allegedly, and a lot of this is alleged, some of it is, you might hear a different story, but part of it is true. There was a Saint Valentine. And he was jailed by the Roman Emperor Claudius II, because Claudius II took exception to, Mary knows the history, she's, he was unwilling to obey the emperor's order not to perform Christian marriages, because Claudius thought he was God, so he didn't want any of this Christian stuff acknowledging some other power as God. The other thing St. Valentine's did is he had a relationship with Claudius's daughter who was blind, and he'd write letters to her, and during this period of time that he'd write letters to her, she was miraculously cured of her blindness. And then he also had a relationship with Claudius until such time as he tried to convert him. And at that time, Claudius says, "No, how about we kill you?" And so that was what happened. He was sentenced to death. And in the year 496, Pope Gelasius announced a feast day for St. Valentine's, and it was on February 14th, and we've been celebrating St. Valentine's ever since. I just thought a little interesting tidbit about where we come up with this Valentine's Day stuff. And we tend to think of it kind of as a romantic holiday, the lovers giving the roses and the flowers. But I went to the dollar store yesterday and got some Valentines for my siblings, and I'm going to send those off to my siblings just to let them know I'm thinking of them and I love them. So years ago, I wrote a poem for Valentine's Day because I think that a lot of people on Valentine's Day feel a little like, I don't like this because I don't have that loving mate. And so then what do we do? So I wanted to incorporate not only the love that we have when we fall in love with somebody, but what happens later, how we form an even stronger bond as the longer we're married sometimes. And then this whole bigger thing, our relationship with our higher power. So it goes like this. What could be sweeter than love when it's new? Remember that feeling? I do too. Excitement that soars when your loved one is near. Now I know I have nothing to fear. For the rest of my life, I'll need nothing more, only my sweetheart to love and adore. Then as time slips away, my life still is good. I'm no longer walking on air as I should. If the magic is gone, should I find a new mate? Find some excitement before it's too late? It's so fun to be giddy and flying high, but these are the feelings that pass by and by. Being crazy and wild when you're young is a must, but what we call love is sometimes called lust. We need that attraction for ongoing birth. Now let's open our hearts and come down to earth. Emerson, Holmes, and other wise sages gave us words of wisdom throughout the ages. With the love of our life, we can build a deep bond, supplanting the first stuff. It goes way beyond. It's the God stuff, our essence, that's real and enduring. Shining light on our loved ones, contentment assuring. On certain occasions, flowers and candy are fine, a show of affection for your Valentine. With our hearts filled with love and oneness, we know the whole world will be blessed. Thank God, it is so. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So that's my Valentine's portion of today, and now we're going to move on to this omnipresence, omniscience, and omnipotence. Regarding the omnipresence, I want to tell you a little story about a school. These were children that were lined up at a cafeteria in a Catholic elementary school for lunch, and at the head of the table where the food was served, there was a big pile of beautiful red juicy apples, and one of the nuns had written a note and posted it by the apple tree. It said, apple tray. It said, "Take only one, God is watching." So, of course, the kids are they're scared, like we all are, of this omnipresent, powerful guy up there looking down, ready to pounce on us. And so, as you walk down the line of the cafeteria to get the food, at the other end, there's a whole pile of chocolate chip cookies. And there's another note, and that note was written by one of the students, and it says, "Take all you want, God's watching the apples." So we know that God is omnipresent. Guess what? He was watching both the apples and the cookies. So we know that God, not as a judge, is everywhere present, surrounding, enfolding, filling every nook and cranny. It's in its creation, God lives, moves, and has its being everywhere, in everyone. And I think that sometimes when we're kids, we have this other idea of this powerful entity up there. I sure did. It was watching me, kind of like Santa Claus. I got that all screwed up too. And you had to be on your best behavior or else. So that omnipresence and that all-powerful, omniscient, that wasn't exactly comforting as a kid. I think it was kind of scary to some of us. So Ernest Holmes says in Science Mind Text, he says, "It is impossible for a sane person to believe that God delights in condemning or damning anyone. God is natural goodness and eternal loving kindness and holds nothing against anyone." Now, I frankly don't think that most religions believe that God takes pleasure in punishing people. I think that's not really what religions teach. But what I find interesting is something else that Holmes wrote. You know, the What We Believe, it used to be in the beginning of our magazines. I don't think it's there anymore. What I Believe, What We Believe. Is it still there? I was looking for it. I didn't see it. Anyway, one of the things, when he first wrote it, he wrote What I Believe, and then somehow it transformed into What We Believe. And one of the statements is this: we believe the ultimate goal of life is to be a complete emancipation from all discord of every nature, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all of us. Not just those of us that believe exactly like we do. That, you know, and I wasn't raised that way. I was raised that there's a lot of people. We weren't even sure about the Lutherans in town. You know, they believed in they could belong to lodges, and somewhere in the word that was a no-no. So we were a little skeptical of them. Certainly the Catholics didn't have a prayer, not to mention any of the other religions. You know, so I think that what Ernest Holmes said when I read this stuff was just so refreshing to me, that we'll all attain this. What a great philosophy this is. I love to bring this to you guys. I love to bring it to the prisons, to tell people, you know, they're not used to hearing that they're decent people. They're not used to hearing that they're worthwhile, that they've got good qualities. Not used to hearing that. So we love to bring this message that says we all got that light in us. We'll all attain the good. So nowhere in science of mind literature are you going to find anything about God being a judge or condemning. It just isn't there. And that's, I think, what made it so palatable to me. God said, Holmes says, God is love. The love of God is omnipresent. It is the divine givingness, the eternal outpouring of spirit through its creation. So we can look at God not as that judge, but as something that's with us all the time. It can be comforting instead of scary. It can be comforting. It's present, surrounding, enfolding, and living in, through, and as us. So that's the omnipresence, present everywhere. Then there's omnipotent. That's all powerful. And you know, what we say every Sunday, there is a power in the universe for good, and you can consciously use it. I mean, not only is God all powerful, but we, because that power is within us, we can use that power as well. All power of the universe is with you. Feel it, know it, and then act as though it were true. You know, why do we live half exciting lives when we can know that that power of God is within us? The universe is inexhaustible. It is limitless, knows no bounds, has no confines. We are not depending on a reed shaken by the wind, but on the principle of life itself for all that we have or ever shall need. Not some power or a great power, but all power. Those are the words of Ernest Holmes. He goes on to say that then we go into omniscience. This is the all-knowing. Okay, the wisdom that God is all-knowing. And remember, all these qualities that we're talking about God are within us. We too can tap into, and I'm going to give you an example of that in a minute, how we can use these qualities as well. Holmes says we're surrounded by a mind or intelligence that knows everything. The abstract essence of beauty, truth, wisdom coexist in the mind and the universe, and we exist in it and may draw from it. How much can we draw? Much as we can hold. Much as we decide we want to take, we can have. So now this kind of omni stuff isn't as scary as it was when we were a kid. We know that it's good because it's within us. It's not something scary. But what I think it's good is to use an example of how does this work in real life. And one of the things that happened to me years ago that to this day has a big impact on me when I think about it. I was a stockbroker, young, just started, and I'm sitting in the office on a 3:30 one afternoon, and the phone rings, and it's this guy I had sold some stock for, and I was supposed to send him his check. He's on the phone. He says, "Where's my check?" I'm like, "Ooh," and I said, "Well, let me check." So these days, obviously, we didn't have computers, so I'm digging through my little carbon copies of what I sent the bookkeeper, finding when I told her to send it, and so forth and so on. So I said, "Well, I see that I ordered that check out. Let me check with the bookkeeper to see when it was sent and make sure the address was right and stuff." So I called the bookkeeper, and she says, "Oh, I'm sorry, that fell through the cracks. It's still sitting in the account." And so then I get back on the phone with this angry man and I tell him, "I'm sorry, it fell through the cracks and still in the account. I can have," oh man, you'd think that I had just killed his firstborn. I mean, he was livid. He raised his voice, and he was yelling at me, and he was swearing at me, and he was telling me what that clerk must have been thinking about that day when she was supposed to send that check. No, she was thinking about her boyfriend and saying naughty things. I'm like, I could not believe this is my job. And so, finally hung up, and, I said, "Yeah, we'll send the check out." Okay. And so I hung up the phone, and I was just devastated. I just thought, I can't do this for a living. I just felt so abused and weak. I felt like I just got pummeled. And somewhere along the way, and this is the omniscience, that wisdom stuff, somehow, something within me, and I don't remember where it came from. I'm guessing I must have read it in a book someplace, because I was just getting into this science of mind stuff, didn't have a handle on it at all. But I sat there at my desk, I took a deep breath, and I visualized myself in this white light of God's love. I mean, I was a believer in God. I knew I'd had prayers answered, and I believed that. So I felt this white light of God's love within me, calming me and giving me strength to get through this awful situation. And then I visualized this white light just sneaking around town, going to this guy's house. And I didn't know where he lived. I'd never met him. It was all telephone stuff. But I visualized this white light connecting with this guy who had just been yelling at me. And I was blessing him. And I was knowing that this peace of God, which was in me, is in everybody all the time. And I blessed this situation. I blessed him. And I was just kind of basking in this and receiving the strength that I really needed at the moment. And the phone rang. And it's this guy. And he says to me, "I owe you an apology." He said, "I don't know what got into me. I had no business carrying on like that. That is ridiculous. I appreciate what you did for me," blah, blah, blah. Hung up, and I thought, oh my God. I just thought, this stuff works. This worked. I was just... And to this day, when I'm up against something that I can't see the answer to, it looks like something bad happened, and that's it. That's the end of it. Now my life is, terrible. And now I think back to that time, and I think, my gosh, if that can happen that quickly, there's a power in the universe that I can consciously use. It's looking out for me. And so I feel like this example shows all those things. It shows the omniscience that I I listened to that voice, wherever that came from, that knowledge that I should take a deep breath and bless him and see the light around him, whatever. And then the idea of omnipresence. It wasn't just at my little cubicle where I was sitting at John G. Kennard and Company. It was across town. It was touching him. And the other thing is the all-powerful. And obviously, there is a power in the universe for good, and we can consciously use it. This, to me, is my example. And, you know, this is why it's important to really, when you have something like this happen to you, which it will as you practice this philosophy, to make a note of it if you need to. Write it down. Put it in a file so that the next time you're up against something that seems impossible, you can go to that and say, oh my gosh, I forgot how hopeless I felt and how I had no idea what the answer to this dilemma was, and yet there it is. So it's really important for us to acknowledge when these things happen, to remember so we can go back to them. There's some stuff that Emma Curtis Hopkins said. Emma Curtis Hopkins was Ernest Holmes' teacher. He was a teacher of the Fillmores who started Unity, and she was a really good lady of affirmation. And I'm just going to share a little bit of one of her affirmations about this omnipresence, omnipotence, and omniscience. She says, God is my life. The good I'm seeking is my health. God is my health. The good I'm seeking is my strength. God is my strength. The good I'm seeking is my support. God is my support. Life is God. Truth is God. Love is God. Substance is God. God is intelligence, omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient. God is life, omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient. God is truth, omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient. God is love, omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient. She was a table-pounding science of mind gal. I mean, she, as I said, she was the teacher of these other teachers, and some of her books are quite up here. They're a little bit harder to read because she was, what do they call that, mysticism. She was one of those people that could, you know, she's a little bit over my head, but some of the books that she wrote are just real plain, here's what you do, you know, there's good for you and you ought to have it. You know, she was just, I would love to have met her. I'm sure she was very feisty. I don't think you'd wanna misbehave in her class. And then I'm going to end with a meditation. I'm going to ask you just to get comfortable where you're sitting, and I'm going to give you, just go through a guided meditation just to kind of ground in what we were talking about here today. Just relax and feel your breath going in and out. Become very aware of your breathing. And now reflect on the presence of God in the atmosphere, everywhere around you. Spirit and breath come from the same root word. Sense the love of God everywhere around you, going in and out of you with each breath. This is the omnipresence of God's love. Focus on my voice and recognize that as it goes in your ears, the vibration sends a message to your brain, which translates the vibration into something that you understand. Know that this is the omniscience, the all-knowing intelligence of God's love. Turn your attention to the sensations within your body. Notice the feeling of your skin, the touch of your clothing on your skin. Feel the sensations in your mouth, your tongue resting on your teeth. Notice any bodily sensations and reflect that every sensation is the biochemical process of the energy and power that is the creative life within you. Feel God's power, God's omnipotence at work within you. Now take this outside of yourself, and in a moment, not yet, I'm going to ask you to open your eyes, and as you do, realize that everything you're looking at is a manifestation of God's love. So when you're ready, open your eyes, and in silence, look around the room at everything, and say to yourself, so this is what God looks like. It's a little bit about what Leif read this morning. Look at your fellow congregants. Look at the walls, the chairs. Look at Victoria. So this is what God looks like. Realize that everywhere you look, you are looking at the ever-present, all-knowing power of God's love in expression. Thank you for doing that with me. And while you're a little bit meditative, let's close with a spiritual mind treatment. I know there is that one power in the universe, and I know it is all good, and I know I am one with it. And I recognize that those qualities of God, the omnipresence, omnipotence, omniscience, are not just the God qualities, because they are qualities that each and every part of God's creation is blessed with. Everyone, everything has that within. And I am so grateful for this. This is the way the universe works. This is the blessing God has given us. I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for the law. And I release these words now for perfect manifestation. So it is.